This is Toffee. He's a septarian, a species of lizard known for their unique ability to regenerate any part of their body in an instant. They're invincible. Toffee and his brethren live in the Kingdom of Muni, a land ruled by the royal butterfly family, notorious for wielding the royal magic wand, the only item in the multiverse that can harness the power of the mythical realm of magic for themselves. For as long as the royal family has existed, Toffee has waged war against them and the magic they possess. Why? Let's find out. Toffee of Septarsis is the main villain of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. He's first introduced in Season 1, Episode 8b, Fortune Cookies, and enacts a plan that we see unfold throughout the second season, building to his eventual death in Season 3, Episode 4, Toffee. The duration of Season 3 after this shows the aftermath of Toffee's attack. Season 4 includes sparse mentions of Toffee to develop the plot further, culminating in his last appearance in Season 4, Episode 20b, Tavern at the End of the Multiverse. In my opinion, Toffee is one of, if not the most well-written fictional antagonist of all time, and although he is a very well-known and appreciated antagonist, I don't think people give him the credit he deserves. Thanks to the reputation of the show's final season online, the growth and climax of his character lacks attention. Whenever people discuss his character, the conversation only seems to revolve around his actions from Season 1 till his death in Season 3, when the most interesting facets of his character are the things outside of his main campaign. The show itself is the story of Star, but Muni history is the story of Toffee. And to fully appreciate Toffee as a character, we need to break the bounds of the show and analyze the deeper narrative inside and out of the 4 main seasons. Now before we start this analysis, I need to make clear my lore disclaimer. As I've expressed in other Star vs. videos, my understanding of the lore only coincides with things shown in the show. Outside sources such as the Magic Book of Spells and the Reddit AMA are taken into consideration, but I only consider things from these sources canon if they're backed up by the show itself. For example, I do not consider Seth of Septarsis canon, and as such I will not be mentioning him at all in my analysis of Toffee. I know some may consider him a big influence on Toffee, but in my opinion Seth only hurts him as a character. Plus, if Seth truly was canon, he would have had at least a mention in Moon the Undaunted, or literally any of Season 4. And with this disclaimer out of the way, let's get into Toffee and his full extensive history. But not without explaining one last thing. To fully understand Toffee's presence in the full lore of Muni, we're going to have to take a look at a particular episode pretty far into the show. That episode is Meteora's Lesson. Toffee is a character shrouded in mystery for most of the show, and this is what originally drew people to the character. But even after we got a little more explanation in episodes like Moon the Undaunted, it still only answered immediate questions like, how did he lose his finger? Why did he fight Moon? Questions like that. It explained nothing of Toffee's deeper history. But in the brief 2-minute long scene we get with Toffee and Meteora's Lesson, we're taught many things. It's easy to think this scene is useless, but this scene is really what allowed me to even make this video, because without it, Toffee would have too little explanation to construct a full character analysis on him. So in this episode, Glossric takes a baby Meteora on a trip to teach her to dip down, and this is a skill that she'll need to know for events that will occur in the future. This trip, however, is a trip through time. They take a ride with Ronaldo, who is supposed to bring them to a specific point in time, but he overshoots it and ends up bringing them to the birth of Muni. Glossric comes face to face with the original settlers of Muni, and with no other choice, he gave them the first magic wand and crowned the first queen of Muni. He then takes Meteora back to Ronaldo to head to the time he wanted initially. Glossric and Meteora then come face to face with a young Toffee, and a small group of Septarians alongside him. Here's where it gets interesting though. If you observe the atmosphere of the birth of Muni scene and compare it to this Toffee scene, it seems oddly similar. Furthermore, it doesn't seem like Ronaldo brought them much farther forward in the River of Time to get them to where they needed to be. With all this information, it can be assumed that Toffee was alive when the first settlers of Muni arrived through the realm of magic. And this can only mean that Toffee predates humanity. This is huge for his character, and this realization was the catalyst for this character analysis as a whole. And now with all exposition out of the way, it's time for the full story of Toffee. We don't know much about Toffee's family or relationships, but we can assume he lived happily on his island, coexisting with several other species of monsters in a fragile ecosystem that works well in a beautiful circle of life. Before humans, I would assume the Septarian race would be top of the food chain, considering the fact that they're invincible. This may also be why Toffee is considered a prince in some other forms of Star vs. media. He wasn't royalty in the Muni we know, but he may have been royalty pre-humanity. Whether or not Toffee was ever royalty is entirely up to speculation, though, and the show itself never tries to portray Toffee as royalty in any way, so I'm going to stick with the idea that he's just a normal Septarian. Then, on one fateful day, a group of Earthlings wandered into the realm of magic and found themselves on this monster island. One lucky human is gifted the royal magic wand, birthed from the realm of magic, and the only true extension of it, able to conjure up anything the user's heart desires. This birthed the first Mumins, and Muni was officially born. Once the Mumins learned how to utilize the wand, they began colonizing the land to create a kingdom. The monsters native to the land quickly began to take notice, and they didn't appreciate it, Toffee being one of them. But with the power of magic at the Mumins' disposal, the monsters were no match. Over the years, the kingdom grew. Many monsters were displaced, thrown out of their homes to make room for humans. The peasants learned to fear monsters, because they didn't have magic to protect themselves. The monsters became aggressive towards humans, and this began an ongoing conflict that would last for centuries. While other monsters are doing what they believe is right, Toffee has a plan. He gathers a small group of Septarians in an attempt to make an army. Septarians are invincible, even to the power of magic, so Toffee believed if he had enough of his own kind, he'd be able to overthrow the royal family. Sometime around then, Toffee meets Glossaryck for the first time. We know nothing about this meeting, but Toffee and Glossaryck do know each other, and they had to have met around this point in the timeline. When gathering his army, Toffee has everyone go through a simple initiation. The soldier would have to get their arm bitten off and prove that they could regenerate it. One fateful day, while Toffee was recruiting a Septarian named Rasticor, he's confronted by a time-traveling Glossaryck and a little baby Meteora. After a quick confrontation, Toffee threatens to break Glossaryck's arm, which angers Meteora enough to dip down and attempt to suck the soul of Toffee. Toffee survives this, however, proving that the invincibility of a Septarian works beyond physical wounds. Nonetheless, this attack is the first time Toffee was a victim of the magic, reinforcing his hatred for it and desire to dismantle the monarchy. This gives Toffee a clear goal: destroy the royal family so they can never use magic against the monsters again. Not too long after this, Solaria the Monster Carver becomes queen. Solaria is notoriously the most anti-monster queen in all of human history, and in an attempt to get rid of all monsters, she created an army of unstoppable magic soldiers known as the Solarian Super Warriors. Headed by Mina Loveberry, the first Solarian warrior, these warriors were completely invincible. They all swore an oath to Queen Solaria, making it so she was the only person capable of taking their powers away. They wielded swords specifically designed to kill monsters. One slash from a Solarian blade and you'll be dead in a matter of hours. The wound hinders your ability to do anything comfortably, then the wound spreads until it completely consumes you. This army of warriors launched an all-out attack, slaughtering any monsters they laid their eyes on. This is an event known as the Great Monster Massacre, a battle that dawned the Mumin holiday Munipendence Day, and a battle Toffee will never forget. It can be assumed that Toffee's army tried to fight the warriors, but retreated after seeing what they're capable of. From here, the Septarians went into hiding, unable to do anything with the threat of the Solarian warriors always looming overhead. But just as quickly as the Solarians appeared, they died out. In just a matter of years, the insane power weighed on the warriors, causing them all to kill themselves. All except for Mina, who persevered well beyond any of her comrades. Eclipsa became queen after Solaria was killed in battle, and she was a very controversial queen. She dabbled in dark magic, which is an insanely powerful yet insanely corruptive form of magic. Her frequent use of it scarred her arms with the darkness. She was forced into marriage with Shastakan of the Spiderbite Kingdom, but she ran away from her royal position to elope with the one she truly loved, Globgor, the King of Monsters. Globgor was a vicious warlord who would eat humans with no mercy, but when he fell in love with Eclipsa, he became a vegetarian for her. They had a child together, Meteora, but King Shastakan wanted nothing to do with the child, so he sent it to a reform school to be raised as a headmistress, meant to forget her past and monster qualities. This angered Globgor, leading him to eat King Shastakan. This event made the Magic High Commission crystallize Eclipsa and Globgor. Then they gave the wand to a peasant girl from Pie Island, and she became the next queen of Muni. Toffee wasn't active during this time in human history, so he's unfamiliar with most things regarding Eclipsa. Over the years, the queens of Muni varied in opinions towards monsters. Some liked them more than others, and the monsters even got their own figures to represent them politically. But the wars persisted. With time, Toffee's army grew bigger. He became a well-respected war general for the monster army. Toffee fought against the humans in organized warfare for generations to no avail. No progress was made. But when Comet Butterfly was put in the throne, something catastrophic happened. She was the biggest monster sympathizer since Eclipsa, and wanted nothing more than to make peace. She had a meeting with Archduke Batwin, representative of the monsters, to sign a peace treaty. But when Toffee heard about this, he went rogue and killed Comet Butterfly. He didn't want peace. He wanted the humans gone, and since organized warfare wasn't cutting it, he had to take drastic measures. He believed slaying the queen would be enough to dismantle the monarchy. He was wrong. The newly appointed Queen Moon Butterfly, Comet's 19-year-old daughter, now has to decide what to do. Thanks to the subtle hints of Glossaric, she decides to make a deal with Eclipsa. She speaks with her and is given a spell that is capable of killing Zeptarians, and all Moon has to do is say the incantation and aim it directly at the heart. But Eclipsa will only teach Moon the spell under the condition that once her foe is killed, she'll be set free. The deal is made and Moon goes to confront Toffee. She asks him to surrender, and when he refuses, she recites the incantation. Toffee doesn't recognize the spell, since he was in hiding from the Solarians most of Eclipse's reign. Moon is hesitant using the spell, though, and instead of aiming for the heart, she aims for the hand. The spell severs Toffee's finger and absorbs it into the wand. The dark magic makes it so Toffee can't regenerate. It's only a finger, but it's enough of a statement to make his entire army disband. For the first time in centuries, Toffee's all alone. Bitter, Toffee retreats. He now realizes brute force won't get the job done. He needs to outsmart them. Toffee goes into hiding once more, and over the next several years he dedicates himself to researching the magic the royal family possesses, and eventually he concocts a plan. The only way to dismantle the Butterfly Dynasty is to destroy the magic they possess. And this brings us finally into the events of the main show. Star Butterfly, the daughter of Moon, grows up in Muni learning to demonize monsters, and when she was younger she would always sneak away from royal duties to fight them since she found it fun. On her 14th birthday she inherited the royal magic wand, but Star wasn't very responsible with it, so her parents decided to send her to Earth, a dimension with no magic, so she could hone her skills. With Glossaric and the magic book of spells at her disposal, she'll be a responsible magic user in no time. Star's arch-nemesis and the main villain of Season 1, Ludo Avarius, catches wind of this through her spy, Yevgeny Bulgoyelov, most commonly known as Buffrog, and decides it's the perfect opportunity to steal the wand for himself. Ludo is a descendant of the royal Avarius family, the original political representatives for the monsters. He kicked his family out of their castle and then amassed a monster army to fight for him. Meanwhile, Toffee has been watching these people closely, waiting for the perfect opportunity to enact his plan. Star befriends a boy named Marco Diaz, and they become extremely close. Ludo constantly tries to steal the wand from Star, but with her magical ability and Marco's skill in karate, Ludo's monsters stood no chance. Eventually, Ludo got fed up with the incompetence of his minions and began hiring new recruits. This was the opening Toffee had been waiting for. Finally, it was time for him to enact his plan. He gets an interview with Ludo and wins him over in a matter of seconds. He's officially recruited into Ludo's ranks, and he helps him come up with a plan for getting the wand. They exploit Star's belief in fortune cookies to trick her into not fighting back when Ludo and his men attack. Toffee stays in the background for this fight, just observing, watching Star, learning her personality, her fighting style, and most importantly, what she cares about. The plan ultimately fails, but Ludo's so impressed by Toffee's work that he officially recruits him. Later, they concoct a new plan. On the annual celebration for Independence Day, Star and her friends are planning for the reenactment of the Great Monster Massacre. Ludo is able to spy on them much easier now because Toffee supplied them with a spying device that resembles the all-seeing eye. Star seems familiar with this eye, so it's safe to assume this is how Toffee gained valuable information about Star's life while he was in hiding. This, however, angers Buffrog. He felt replaced, so he tried to inspire a rebellion. He gave a speech to the other monsters, telling them in due time Toffee will replace all of them. But Toffee intervenes and begins to explain the plan to steal the wand further. He introduces another new piece of technology, a portal staff that will teleport anything straight to the castle. He suggests one of the monsters take this staff to Earth to steal the wand, and Buffrog volunteers, just as Toffee suspected. Buffrog goes unnoticed in the midst of the Great Monster Massacre reenactment, and makes it to the wand without Star noticing, but when he went to push the button, the portal wouldn't open. This malfunction causes Star to notice him there, and he's chased back to Ludo's castle. This failure angers Ludo. He was only going to send Buffrog off with a stern warning, but Toffee encourages him to take more drastic measures. Buffrog is then kicked out of the castle, forced to live outside. One day at school, Marco is trying to grow a beard to impress Jackie Lynn Thomas, his crush. Star takes notice of this, and at night she puts a beard growth spell on Marco while he was sleeping. The next morning, the spell got out of hand, and Marco's beard grew so large it overtook the house, knocking Star out on the front lawn. She left her wand with Marco, so she had to venture through the hair to get it back and fix the problem. Unfortunately, Toffee took notice of this, and encouraged Ludo and his army to try and steal the wand while it's unattended. This led to a confrontation between Star and Ludo's army as they raced to the bathroom for the wand. Ludo's army managed to restrain Star so Ludo can grab the wand for himself, but Ludo has a childhood fear of hair, and this caused him to fall into a laughing fit, allowing Star to break free and chase Ludo and his army away once again. Toffee took notice of Ludo's phobia, however, and used it to his advantage. In the aftermath of the battle, Ludo was scolding his army as usual on how terrible of a job they did, but Toffee intervenes. He turns on Ludo, saying he was the only reason they didn't have the wand already. He convinces Ludo's army to mount a mutiny, and just like that, Ludo is kicked out of his own castle. Toffee is now in full control. One night after Star and Marco get into a fight, Toffee sends one of his minions, Boofly, to capture Marco. He threatens Star, saying if she ever wants to see her friend again, she'll come to Ludo's castle alone. Meanwhile, Ludo gives Buffrog a burlap sack full of tadpoles as a show of good faith, so will kick Toffee out of his castle for him. Buffrog is very appreciative. Star then shows up and talks with them to clear up what's happening. She heads into the castle to fight Toffee, but before she does, Buffrog warns her that Toffee isn't like Ludo. He knows about her, and he doesn't like her magic. She then bum rushes the castle, and within 5 seconds shoots Toffee's arm clean off, leaving him baffled, laying on the floor for a few minutes. Star sees Marco locked in a crystal cage and begins to fight all the monsters in an attempt to free him. She manages to break the cage open with a really powerful spell, but the walls heal themselves in a matter of seconds. It's at this point Toffee stands up, regenerates his arm, and informs Star that the crystal is twice as strong now. Star, desperate, gives in. She drops the wand in front of Toffee, offering it to him, but he pushes it back. He tells her he doesn't want the wand for himself. He wants it destroyed. He tells Star to use the whispering spell, the first spell her mother ever taught her. Toffee knew Star wasn't like her mother. He knew she was a more emotionally driven person. He knew she'd care more for her friends than the magic. So she submits. She kneels, recites the incantation, and we see the magic fade from the wand. Toffee then opens the cage, but Star pushes Marco back in and closes the door. The spell isn't over. Toffee bids farewell to his army, and the wand begins to glow until eventually it detonates. The magical explosion destroys the entire castle, leaving nothing but the cage, Ludo, and a new wand left in the rubble. Toffee's nowhere to be found. Star picks up the wand and notices the emblem on it is only half there. Ludo tries to yell at Star for destroying his castle, but she opens a portal and tosses Ludo in with no remorse. Thanks to the huge commotion, Star is forced to explain what happened to her parents. She doesn't explain everything, though. Toffee goes unmentioned. She shows the wand to her parents, and they offer to clean it up for her, but instead, they call Glosric. They speak with him and determine that the wand has been cleaved, and the other piece is missing. This may seem like the end for Toffee, but it was only the beginning. The second season opens by showing us Star's new wand, and we're shown it's malfunctioning. Glosric inspects the wand, meanwhile trying to give Star a lesson in dipping down. Dipping down is the ability to use magic without the wand, something any butterfly can do, but few have achieved. It requires complete focus and sync with your emotions. On the other side of the wand, we're shown where Ludo went after being tossed in the portal. We see him live in the wild for around 3 months, learning to fend for himself, becoming much more self-reliant. Very different from the way he used to behave, relying solely on his army of monsters. He manages to tame a giant spider and eagle and uses them to his advantage to survive. But one day, he has a hallucination of Star. He chases it, which leads him to a glowing spot in the ground. He digs and unearths the second half of the wand, glowing an ominous tint of green. The emblem is attached to a stone being held by Toffee's skeletal hand. Toffee has found his puppet. In reality, when the wand exploded, Toffee was sent into the realm of magic. He lost his body, but thanks to his regenerative ability, he was able to embody the whispering spell Corruption. This small amount of corruption would normally be washed away and purified by the rest of the magic, but because Toffee now exists in the realm, he's able to spread this corruption throughout the entire realm. This is a slow process, though, so in the meantime, he needs to make preparations for the next step of his plan. Now that Ludo has discovered the wand, Toffee can communicate with him through it. Ludo is unaware that this is Toffee, but he blindly listens to him anyway. Ludo tries to use his wand, but to no avail, until one day he goes to a rat tavern for some food. He's tricked into eating mud, which angers him. This is where he learns that he can channel his negative emotions into a powerful magic blast. He uses this to destroy the entire rat tavern and recruit them as an army. Meanwhile, Buff Frog, who has befriended Star, asks her to babysit his tadpoles while he goes on a mission. In this mission, he learns of a mysterious hole in a magic force field the humans use to protect their cornfields, and they also know rats are using the hole to steal corn. While Ludo is demanding his rats to do this, Toffee tells him to find Star. He listens, and they have a grand reunion on Earth. They notice that they both have wands, and then begin to fight each other. Ludo has the upper hand, but thanks to Glossric, he teaches Star a spell from the book, and she uses it to drive Ludo away. She may have won the battle, but Ludo is now aware of the Book of Spells' existence. This becomes his next target. Meanwhile, Buffrog is on another mission, and meets Ludo once again. They end up fighting. Buffrog manages to escape, but Ludo's insanity is becoming more apparent, and much more threatening. One day, the corruption of the wand begins affecting Star's spells significantly, so she talks to Glossric. He informs her that something must be wrong with the wand, so he sends Star into the mindscape of the wand, the part that delves into the user's memories. Star is tasked with finding the thing that doesn't belong. After a long journey, Star ends up in the Grandma Room, a room full of the tapestries of the previous queens of Muni. She looks at a few tapestries, one being Zelina, another being Eclipsa, the next being Solaria, and then finally, she looks at her mother's tapestry. Moon's tapestry depicts her severing Toffee's finger, which informs Star for the first time that her mom knew Toffee. It's then that she finds the thing that doesn't belong. Toffee's finger falls out of the tapestry, and Star quickly grabs it before being removed from the wand by Glossric. This is just as Toffee wanted. He knew the first assumption as to why the wand was behaving weird would be that the wand itself is the problem, rather than the realm of magic, and thanks to Star's little journey, his finger has now been drawn back into the real world. On the following day, Star is getting another lesson from Glossric when she gets tempted to read Eclipse's Forbidden Chapter. Glossric opens the chapter for her before being called to a meeting with the Magic High Commission. Star becomes tempted to read the chapter and finds a loophole to do so through Marco. He opens the chapter and Star reads the whole thing, not being affected by it because there's no darkness in her. But Marco, with the monster arm still living inside him, is tainted by the dark magic and is caught in a floating vortex. When Glossric returns, he assures Star there's a spell to get him back to normal, and so they heal him. This leads us to prom night. Marco and Jackie go out to prom together, while Star, Janna, Glossric, and the Book of Spells all go to a graveyard to resurrect a 100-year-old dead clown. In trying to do this, though, they're ambushed by Ludo. They get into a huge battle, and although Star and everyone else make it out alive, Ludo escapes with the Book of Spells in tow. With the change in ownership, Glossric now serves Ludo. Star tells her parents that Ludo stole the book, expecting the worst, but they're very understanding and promise not to tell anyone about it. But now with the Book of Spells in Ludo's possession, he begins learning magic. He learns the spell Levitato, allowing him to magically move anything he wants. This is the only spell he learns, however. The night after learning this spell, Toffee convinces Ludo to read Eclipse's chapter. He opens it up and is immediately tainted by dark magic the same way Marco was. Since Toffee has a connection with dark magic through his missing finger, he's able to utilize the high concentrations of it to draw himself into Ludo's body. Toffee can now control Ludo at will, and with this, he now gained ownership of the Book of Spells. This leads us to the infamous Song Day, where Star is tasked with writing her princess song. Meanwhile, Moon goes to the new Avarius home in the Forest of Certain Death to see if Ludo's family will have any information on his whereabouts. But it turns out the entire family despises Ludo for stealing the castle, and they want nothing to do with him. All except for Dennis, one of Ludo's younger brothers. Dennis looks up to Ludo and agrees to take Moon to where he's staying if she promises to help him. Moon agrees and Dennis flies her to the ancient monster temple where Ludo sought refuge. Moon saw that Ludo wielded the other half of the wand and began to panic. She flew back home to gather the Magic High Commission to reclaim the wand. After Song Day, Star is at a party to celebrate the beginning of summer vacation, while Moon and the Magic High Commission enact an all-out assault on the monster temple. They raid it and search for the Book of Spells, but can't seem to find it. While the Commission is searching, Moon talks with Ludo to try and help him. She almost breaks through to him, but unfortunately, Toffee had bigger plans. He takes over Ludo's body and sucks the soul of Moon, a technique he was familiar with thanks to the fact that he fell victim to it centuries ago at the hands of Meteora. The High Commission finds them as the wand fuses to Ludo's body and becomes one with his hand. Then they all attack Toffee. He's too powerful, though. He's become one with the magic, utilizing the thing that he hates so much to achieve his altruistic goals. He sucks the soul of every High Commission member, but Lekmit continuously heals them, draining his life force significantly. After he revives Moon, he loses his life. Moon grabs the soulless bodies of the Commission members and flees through a portal from the crumbling monster temple. But before she leaves, Toffee tells her he's coming for Star to get his finger. Moon decides Earth is no longer safe for Star, so she goes to her room, finds Toffee's finger, and then tells Star they're leaving for Muni. Star says she needs 2 minutes. She goes to say goodbye to Marco before abruptly leaving. Marco chases after her, but by the time she makes it to her room, she's already disappeared. This brings us to the climax of Toffee's plan. Nearly every piece has been set into place. In the beginning of Season 3, Moon rushes Star to the Magic Sanctuary, a spot that contains a well directly into the realm of magic, where they should be able to heal the Magic Eye Commission. But when they try to pour the pure magic from the realm onto them, it's black, sludgy, and corrupted. At this point, Moon decides it's safest, if for the time being, her and Star camped out in the sanctuary, where they will hopefully be safe. Meanwhile, Ludo has gained consciousness again, and Toffee wants him to go to Butterfly Castle and overthrow it. But Ludo refuses, because he wants to begin his own chapter in the Book of Spells. But since Toffee now owns the book, Ludo has no authority to write in it. Out of rage, he throws the book into a fire, and we see it burn to ashes, leaving nothing left but one metal corner lying in the pit. This sends Glossaryck back into the realm of magic, since the book was his only tie to the physical realm. After this, Ludo sets course for Butterfly Castle. And after a small situation with Marco and King River, Ludo and his army of rats take over all of Muni, imprisoning River and Marco in the dungeon. Star and Moon wake up in the Magic Sanctuary to find corrupted magic is flooding the building, so they escape and get shelter with Buffrog and his babies. They learn through him that Ludo took over Butterfly Castle and is now king, but Moon and Buffrog won't let Star go to the castle to fight. Toffee is far too powerful, and Star can hardly use magic because her wand is corrupted. But thanks to the buff babies, Star finds a way out and makes her way to the castle without her wand. In the castle, Ludo wants to be loved by his people, so he forces River to make them love him, but when River refuses, Ludo levitatos him into the sky on public display. Star makes her way to the castle and attacks Ludo. She is then captured and put in the dungeon, but not before Star tells him what's really going on. She tells him Toffee is in the wand, controlling him. He doesn't want to believe her at first, but the idea weighs on him, so he takes Star out of the dungeon to explain further. Star explains everything, and Ludo asks if there's any way to stop him. Star at first says no, but then she realizes what truly happened when she used the Whispering Spell. She now thinks if she uses the Whispering Spell on Ludo's wand, she can transfer herself into the realm and defeat Toffee from the inside. Moon, Buffrog, and Marco all chase after Star while she's doing this, and they find her right as she finishes saying the spell. We see Ludo's wand light up, and then, just as it did before, it explodes, drawing Star into the realm of magic. Just as Toffee wanted. Luckily, since she's one with the magic, she's able to keep her physical form, unlike Toffee, who lost his body in the transfer. Star finds herself in the corrupted realm of magic, and is then attacked by an embodiment of Toffee made out of it. He greets Star and then explains to her where she is. The realm is nearly 100% corrupted. There's only small fragments of pure magic left floating around. The explosion from the Whispering Spell destroyed the tower Star and Ludo were standing on, leaving nothing but a crater, so Marco, Buffrog, and Moon ran into the crater only to find Ludo's body. Toffee possesses Ludo's body one last time to speak to them. Now that Star is in the realm with him, he has her hostage. He offers a deal to Moon. He'll return Star safely to her, if she gives him his finger. And Moon, trying to save her daughter, accepts. Toffee puts out Ludo's hand, and Moon places the finger in the palm of it. With his finger finally back in his possession, he leaves the realm of magic and finally regenerates back into the physical world. Once he returns, Moon asks for Star. Toffee then crushes his half of the wand in his palm, leading everyone to believe she's dead. In reality, she's still alive in the realm of magic, and Toffee knows this, but he wanted to hurt Moon as much as he could. With the realm of magic almost completely corrupted, Star left there to die, Moon, Marco, and Buffrog suffering emotionally, and the entire kingdom of Muni in ruins, Toffee has nothing left to do. The monarchy has fallen, with no way of standing back up. He was done, and so he walked away. But unfortunately for Toffee, Star is persistent. While in the realm of magic, she desperately tries to grab onto any fragment of pure magic left, but to no avail. She eventually drowns in the corruption, leading her to come face to face with Glossaryck once again. They have a conversation, which leads Star to finally, truly dip down. She grasps the last piece of pure magic in the realm and births a brand new mill horse that manages to revitalize the entire realm of magic, healing the Magic High Commission and helping Star escape the realm by achieving her true butterfly form. Both pieces of the wand fuse together once again, and Star channels all of her power into one gigantic magic blast that decimates Toffee, leaving him a barely standing pile of goop. Marco, Moon, and Buffrog all happily reunite with Star, celebrating that she's alive, until Toffee returns. He painfully crawls over to them, laughing, letting them know that they haven't won, and only he knows how everything turns out. He's then crushed by a pillar pushed over by Ludo. Toffee is dead. This officially completes the deal, and Eclipsa is now set free. For the rest of the season, we see the aftermath of Toffee's attack and how greatly it has affected the world and the political ties between kingdoms. Meanwhile, we explore the history of the butterfly family. Eclipsa is now living in the castle, awaiting a trial to prove that she's evil enough to justify recrystallization, thanks to Star, who believes she's not bad at all. It's revealed at this trial that Star and Moon aren't of royal blood, since the High Commission swapped Eclipsa's daughter with a peasant girl all those years ago. It also turns out that the headmistress of the infamous St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses is Meteora, survived by stealing the youth of the princesses in her school. She works with Rastakor, one of Toffee's old soldiers. She eventually learns of her true history and begins to embrace her monster qualities. She learns to dip down and goes on a rampage to reclaim the throne to Muni that's rightfully hers. Star tries to hide away at first, paralleling what Moon did during Toffee's attack, but then realizes she's the only one who could stop her. Eclipsa helps Star defeat Meteora, reverting her to a baby to be raised the right way. And Star decides to relinquish the wand to Eclipsa. Eclipsa rightfully deserves it, so she accepted. Eclipsa then relocated to the Monster Temple, because that's where Globgor has been crystallized this whole time. The fourth season shows us a world under Eclipsa's rule. She's doing all she can to give the monsters what's rightfully theirs, which is angering humans all over Muni. They all flock to Moon, who now lives in the woods with River, and they end up making a small kingdom for displaced humans. Meanwhile, Moon discovers that Mina Loveberry is planning an attack on Eclipsa. She asks Moon to join her, and Moon refuses at first, but after realizing what Mina could do if she isn't controlled, Moon agrees to help her. In the beginning of the season, Star has a conversation with Glosric. She's talking about necessity and says she has to do what she has to do, bringing up Toffee as an example. Glosric then hints that it may have been a mistake to kill Toffee. Then Glosric and Meteora have their time travel escapade, completing the time paradox. Globgor is eventually set free, and after a tension-filled coronation, almost all of Muni sees the error of their ways and accepts Eclipsa and Globgor as their king and queen. The kingdom should be at peace, but there will always be a group of radicals set in their ways to the bitter end. Moon wants the throne back, and works with Mina to reinstate the Solarian program. She takes citizens from her town and imbues them with magical power, dawning a new age of Solarian super warriors. This army is then sent to the Monster Temple to make a statement. Star and all of her friends band together to fight the army, but even with everything they threw at the warriors, it was to no avail. Everyone except Star, Marco, and Eclipsa were wounded with a Solarian blade, and the rampage had no end in sight. It's as if they're experiencing the Great Monster Massacre from Toffee's point of view. Moon finally arrives and threatens Eclipsa to give her the wand. Eclipsa surrendered the throne to Moon, but Mina wasn't satisfied. She wanted all monsters and monster sympathizers dead by any means necessary. Defying Moon's orders, she ordered the other warriors to kill any monsters they saw. Moon was fed up and tried to take the powers away, but little did she know all the warriors secretly pledged their oath to Solaria, meaning the powers couldn't be removed by Moon. Star and company all retreated to a different dimension thanks to Hekapu, and it's then that Star makes the realization. After experiencing the threat of the Solarian warriors firsthand, she begins thinking. Now finding herself on the other side of Independence Day, she begins sympathizing with Toffee. She speaks with Glosric and decides she's going to destroy the magic by saying the whispering spell in the realm of magic. She gazed at her mother's tapestry one last time, finally realizing that Toffee was never wrong. Magic is a scourge on Muni. She explains her decision to everyone else and is met with opposition at first, but it ultimately turns to understanding. This leads us to the final episode of the show, where after a long struggle, Star destroys the magic once and for all. Just like Toffee wanted. Toffee is an insanely well-written villain with several layers to his character that the average viewer may not even notice. The beauty of this character to me is his lack of screen time contrasted by his constant presence. Toffee hardly appears in the show. His character only appears in 10 episodes out of the 77 in the series, yet somehow him and his ideologies are always looming in the subtext of the show. Whether he's in hiding, waiting to strike, trapped in the realm of magic, corrupting it from the inside, or he's long dead. What he's doing and what he believes in is always there. Never have I seen a story kill its main villain so early in the series and still keep him at the forefront of everything the entire time. But the beauty of it is you'll hardly notice. For the majority of Season 2, you aren't thinking about Toffee, but he's pulling the strings behind every event. After his death in Season 3, you aren't thinking about him, but every event that occurs in the rest of the season is in response to what he's done up until then. Eclipsa wouldn't be free if it weren't for Toffee. Meteora wouldn't be allied with Rastakor if it weren't for Toffee. Muni wouldn't be in the tense state it's currently in if it weren't for Toffee. In Season 4, you're not thinking about Toffee. But the focus on human monster tension, followed by the second coming of the Solarian Super Warriors, is all a current-day retelling of the events experienced by Toffee thousands of years ago, which leads Star to the realization he was right all along. He knew exactly what to do and when to do it. He spent hundreds of years learning about the butterfly family that colonized his home, and used this knowledge to his advantage whenever he could. Even right before his death, he was still confident. He knew that he had won. One way or another, the magic will get destroyed. Even if he was gone, he had already accomplished his goal. The story of Muni is the story of Toffee. The entire show wouldn't have even happened if it weren't for Toffee. Many people like to say the show should have ended with Toffee's death, but I disagree. If that were the ending, Starverses would have been just another Gravity Falls, and Toffee would have been no deeper than Bill Cipher. And being a Gravity Falls isn't an insult by any means, but Starverses went in a different direction, and even if many people are too blind to see it, we ended up with an insanely well-written and intricate plot with one of the best villains of all time because of it.